Tom Dixon, host of the Financial Experts Network. Delighted to have you here with our special guest, Mr. Social Security, otherwise known as Kurt Zarnowski, he being the bearded one on screen. Kurt is one of our most popular speakers. I've been hosting webinars like this and replays like this for over 12 years, and one of the most popular speakers we've ever had. And delighted he could join us to address this very, very important question about Social Security. So now, before we start with Kurt, of course, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel and click on that bell to make sure you get notice of all the educational replays we will post on a very regular basis on the Financial Experts Network channel. And please also note in the description field the various resources we will make available to you, to include the highlights of the 2021 Social Security Trustees Report and a unique frequently asked question guide about everything and anything on Social Security that we've put together over the years with the help of Kurt. So again, hope you take advantage of all those opportunities. Now, let me just quick background on Kurt. He was with the Social Security Administration for 33 years. And despite that, folks, he actually has a personality, and is no question an expert. It's all he's done. It's his sole career, his sole passion in life, I could say. So it's really a treat. So if you're really looking for an authority on the issue of Social Security, we're lucky enough to have Kurt with us. So Kurt, thank you so much for joining. Hopefully that wasn't too much high praise for you, but I know you're a very humble man.
Yeah, don't worry, Tom. Any praise you offer me is counteracted by my wife, so I'll be brought down to earth very quickly. Hey, it's good to be back with you. Good to see you. I hope you're well, and hope everyone who's participating is doing as well as could be expected during these crazy times. Stay safe, everyone.
Yeah. Amen. All right, great. Okay, so a lot of people have the question of how much will I get in Social Security, or how is that benefit amount calculated? So let's start there, Kurt. Could you explain that for people, please?
Sure. And that's a really important question, which ties into an even bigger, broader issue of you got to recognize that the Social Security program was never intended to be anyone's sole source of income in retirement. It's always been intended to provide a base or a foundation of income that people can count on being there for them. But it's a base of income they must take steps to supplement. Because as I said, it was never intended to be their only source of income in retirement. And so the key to all of this then is planning for retirement, and planning by building off an understanding of what Social Security is intended to provide you with. Now, quick bit of history. Back in the day, Social Security used to mail everyone 25 years of age or older a paper document, a Social Security statement. Paper statement designed to show up in your mailbox 3 months before your birthday, giving you important retirement planning information, benefit estimates at some different ages. It also provided a nice year-by-year breakout of what your work and earnings had been recorded at Social Security. And it was important to review that earnings information, because we'll see in a second what you get is directly related to what you had been making. But Social Security no longer mails paper documents to everyone. Instead, they put in place a system whereby if you go to www.socialsecurity.gov/myaccount and take about 10 or 15 minutes or so to set up an individual My Social Security account for yourself. There are a lot of benefits from having that account in place. And the biggest one prior to retirement is you'll be able to download through a secure website a Social Security statement for yourself anytime you need one or want one, and get benefit estimates that are up to date and recognize what the Social Security program is going to get you. And for the average worker, it's only intended to replace around 41% of what somebody's making at retirement. But then recognize you need to move from what Social Security provides to where you need and want to be. So take advantage of that My Social Security account. Set that account up for yourself if you haven't done it, or if you've got clients and prospects, ensure that they do. Because again, key tool to planning for retirement is that Social Security statement. But in terms of how much you're going to get, well, as I mentioned, benefit amount is related to what your work and earnings had been under the program. Now, again, about 96% of the jobs in this country today do fall under the Social Security umbrella. It's about 176 million people currently paying into the system. And Social Security tracks those earnings. And when it comes time for somebody to retire and apply for benefits, or perhaps apply for disability benefits, their benefit, as I said, is going to be tied to what their work and earnings have been. And while there's a relationship, though, we'll see it's not a perfect one. But in general terms, the higher your earnings have been, the more you've paid in Social Security tax, the higher your payment is going to be from Social Security. But in calculating your benefit, Social Security simply uses a formula that Congress has written right into the law. First step in the formula is Social Security looks at those prior years of earnings and then adjusts them for inflation, brings them up to what they are in today's dollars. Because then once they've done that, they calculate your benefit by plucking out and averaging your highest, wait for it, Tom, 35 years of work under the system. I don't know how many folks I've talked to over the years that mistakenly think, oh, it's my high 3, right? Or my last 5. Social Security benefits are calculated by averaging a lifetime of earnings, which these days defined as your highest 35 years of work under the system, 35 inflation adjusted years. Now, it's not necessarily your first 35. It's not necessarily your last 35. It isn't even necessarily 35 consecutive years, but it's an average of 35 years. So what happens if you don't happen to have 35 years where you paid into the program? You've taken time out the workforce to raise kids, care for aging parents, or perhaps work for a while in a job where you weren't paying into Social Security. Unfortunately, it's still going to be an average of your 35 highest years of work. And so if you don't happen to have 35 years of something, zeros get added in for those additional years. It lowers your average monthly wage and it lowers your benefit. So it's based on a lifetime of earnings. 2 numbers for people to think about in 2021, the average monthly Social Security retirement benefit being paid, $1,543 a month. $1,543 average retirement benefit, which is a little over $18,500 per year. Then I often get asked, well, is there a maximum payment that Social Security makes? Well, in 2021, for someone who is at his or her full retirement age, which this year is 66 years and 2 months, and who for each of the past 35 years has had earnings at or above whatever the taxable maximum has been. That's an important point. You could make $500,000 this year, but you're only going to pay Social Security tax on the first $142,800 you make. And so when averaging your earnings, Social Security doesn't average in the $500,000. No, it's only earnings up to the taxable maximum. But again, somebody who's had earnings past 35 years at or above the taxable maximum, this year he or she receives $3,148 per month, which is a little over $37,700 per year. Good solid base, good solid foundation. But again, never intended to be anyone's sole source of income in retirement. Sooner they recognize that, move from what Social Security provides to where they need and want to be for that comfortable retirement, the more likely you are to be there. But the key point, it's based on an average, an inflation adjusted average of a lifetime of earnings. These days, your highest 35 years of work under the Social Security program.
And just to follow up on that, Kurt, just to make it very clear as well, if you must work a minimum of X number of years to qualify. So again, if you work a brief period of time and you take off for whatever reasons, whether it's family or caregiving or health or whatever it may be, you have to work how many years, Kurt, to be eligible?
Also a very important question. You need to work and accrue what are called Social Security credits. You need 40 Social Security credits to qualify for a payment based on your own work record. Now, historically, when the program started, they were called quarters of coverage. But since 1978, you get coverage and protection accruing Social Security credits. In 2021, for example, you get 1 Social Security credit for each $1,470 that you make, regardless of when you make it. You can earn a maximum of 4 credits during any one calendar year. So this year, for example, with earnings of $5,880 or more, you've accrued your 4 credits for this year. And once you've accrued 40 credits and or quarters of coverage from back in the day, you got your foot in the door. You're always going to be entitled to something But again, and figure out how much that something's going to be. It's going to be an average of your 35 highest years of work. So if you have 10 years of something, it's going to be 10 years of something and 25 years of zeros. Averages lowers your average wage and lowers your benefit. Fewer than 40 credits, you're not going to qualify for anything based on your own work record. It's really kind of this cliff. There's no phase in or phased out approach. You may be able to collect based on the work and earnings of your spouse, and maybe we can talk about that in a future episode. But 40 credits get your foot in the door, entitles you to something, but when it comes time to figure out how much that something is, it's based on an average of your 35 highest inflation-adjusted years of work. And again, work covered under the Social Security program. You're working in a job outside of Social Security, you're not going to be paying Social Security tax. Those earnings won't be utilized in calculating your Social Security payment.
And just to clarify as well, so it's not only the 40 quarters or 10 years, but you have to make a certain amount of money in each quarter to be eligible. So again, folks, if you're listening, it's working those 10 years, let's say, but again, you have to make it or have made a certain amount of money to earn that credit. So again, be mindful of that. Okay,
again,
great.
I was just going to say $1,470 is the amount required for a credit this year. $58.80 or more gets you your 4 credits for the year.
Great. Yeah, so that's 2021. Okay, so again, just to reinforce as well, please, if you haven't already, set up a Social Security account, get a My Social Security account, and make sure every year, especially if you're self-employed, that you're checking your earnings record. You have to be on top of that. If there is something that's inaccurate, you're going to need to report that on a timely basis. And what's that time frame again if you're self-employed versus an employee, Kurt, in terms of reporting some inaccuracy on your record?
Right. So we'll start with if you're an employee first. Social Security, there is no statute of limitations on how far back Social Security will correct a wage reporting error that may have occurred. But as you say, you want to stay on top of it, because even though they could correct an error that may have occurred back in 1975 or something, you do need to provide proof of what the correct amount of earnings was. And so the more time that's passed, the less likely you're going to have evidence of what the correct amount was. But there is no statute of limitations in terms of correcting a wage error that may have occurred if you were an employee. But you need to contrast that with if someone is self-employed, because self-employment income credited to Social Security records through the filing of the federal tax return. And with the IRS, you have that 3-year, 3-month, 15-day statute of limitations on filing a federal income tax return for a tax year. So very important for self-employed people to stay on top of their their earnings record, because with self-employment income, there is that 3-year, 3-month, 15-day statute of limitations that does apply, although it doesn't apply for people who are employees and may have had a wage reporting error in the past.
Great. So again, folks, if you're listening and you've had any concern as to whether your earnings record is accurate on your Social Security earnings history, you need to be mindful of these timeframes. There's one for those of you that are employed and working for an employer or a company, and then there's a different time frame, much shorter, for those of you listening in that are self-employed. So again, be mindful of that. If you have any concern that your benefit or your projection appears to be inaccurate, you want to be on top of this, and again, review this on an annual basis. So with that, Kurt, thank you so much for this session. Now